Hi, folks. This is Don Meisner with the North Country Fishing Report. One thing I've never talked about because I've never really done it, and it's a new sensation in fishing. At least it seems to be almost a newfound way of really effectively fishing, and that's using floats. Okay, now let's think about what a float is. We always called them a bobber when I was a kid. You threw a bobber out there, and it allowed your lure not to be down on the bottom. But more important, it always was something that a fisherman that had not fished an awful lot, that didn't have a great feel or technique, they could watch that bobber. And the bobber would tell them when they had a strike. If the bobber started dipping in the water or even was pulled under the water, you knew a fish had hit your bait, and you could yank and set the hook. But now people are using bobbers, and they don't call them that. They call them floats, to be able to more effectively use whatever artificial or even live bait, but artificial bait that they're using. Now, if you go fly fishing, essentially what you're doing is you're letting the fly or streamer or nymph or whatever be taken naturally down through the current to the fish. You don't want that. You don't want that fly or whatever you're using on the bottom. It has to be drifting like things that had fallen into the water would drift down until a fish sees them and then comes over to strike them. It has to drift naturally. Well, now people are using floats to, in other words, some kind of bobber, for lack of a better way of putting it. It could be shaped in all different kinds of ways, and it has to be just the right weight so it doesn't stand in the way of how the bait feels going down through the water. But by using something like this, you can keep your jig, your lure of whatever, from being on the bottom, and it can float naturally down like any other type of live bait would in the water. It's something people are using an awful lot now because you can make whatever bait you're using, whatever lure you're using, whether it's a soft plastic twister or jig or creature bait or whatever, even worm, you can make it look a lot more real and natural to the fish that would be very wary. So that float's going to allow it to drift. It's almost like drop shotting in the St. Lawrence. When the way you present your bait, you don't have your bait standing motionless on the bottom. You have it drifting naturally with the current. You don't want it to have a drag to it. You don't want it to look unnatural. But this float does the same thing in some of our tributaries. And I'm going to experiment a lot this year because I think it can be a lot of fun. And I think it can make the presentation that I'm trying to offer the fish a lot more effective. Until next time, folks, this is Don Meisner with the North Country Fishing Report.